When it comes to Algorand, would I hypothetically consider it a sleeping giant, even though nothing I say is financial advice, and even though the idea of ALGO, which is Algorand's native token, and maybe the idea of $5 is still on my mind? Let me explain why, again, hypothetically, I would consider it a sleeping giant. It's because when I take a look at ALGO, in terms of market cap, it's pretty big, right? But then at the same time, I don't think I've seen a fully fledged type of hypothetical altcoin season during this cycle. So if I take a look at Algo again, which is pretty famous, right? Also on top of that, Algorand, pretty well known as a layer one blockchain. And then there's maybe not a fully fledged type of hypothetical altcoin season yet during this cycle. This is why, in my mind, hypothetically, I would actually consider it a sleeping giant in my perspective. However, even besides that, when I take a look at maybe the idea of $5 when it comes to Algo, I get it. As of right now, altcoins are not necessarily even the best, and $5 is now around a 23x from here. However, to me, I am not necessarily kind of, concerned with what I'm seeing right now because I treat this like a marathon. It's not a sprint to me. I knew that I wasn't in this space just for a week or 2 weeks and then I was just gonna not care anymore. That wasn't my kind of vibe. My thing was always treating it like a marathon. It's not a sprint. So whatever happens along the way, it is what it is. I have no control over the market. But the only thing I can do is just focus on myself, and that is just dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting. And literally, that's about it. I'm not telling anyone to do anything, by the way. But even if I pulled up a price chart and drew a random triangle or I drew a falling wedge pattern, the market still wouldn't care about that, right? So that's not something I focus on. Instead, I just take a look at the fundamentals and just focus on the projects that I'm a fan of. And why am I a fan of something like Algorand? It's because as a layer one blockchain, I feel like fundamentally, I don't know what bad thing happened to it. Like personally for me, I still like the fundamentals. Yeah, sure, the price of Algo isn't doing the best, but many altcoins out there are also not necessarily doing the best. A lot of them are actually having this downward trend as of right now because of the pullback. But then at the same time, when it comes to Algorand, I still like its fundamentals. And I feel like in the long term, what I care about is the fundamentals. If I take a look at Algorand, supposedly, or should I say allegedly, it is the technology of choice for over 2,000 global organizations. That is pretty impressive in my opinion. I mean, some other projects out there, if they could just achieve like maybe 5 global organizations or 10, that's already like very impressive. But then in this case, over 2,000, that is just so impressive in my opinion. However, also on top of that as well, supposedly Algorand is carbon neutral, which I think again is very cool. And also on top of that, if I take a look at Algorand, I really like its ecosystem, arguably I would say, because there's many decentralized applications out there. I mean, I just like Algorand overall. When it comes to a layer one blockchain, sometimes people like to say, but there's so many. And I totally understand that, but really Algorand has the presence, it has kind of the popularity, and it has the track record. And also on top of that, I don't think it's only just one layer one blockchain and the rest don't really do anything. It's like, for instance, there's many car brands out there, right? I mean, yeah, sure, there's Toyota, but then there's also other car brands too. So when it comes to layer one blockchains, I don't think it's only just going to be one thing. Like, for instance, yeah, sure, there is Ethereum, but it's not the only one, right? I mean, there's many others. So this is what I like. And also, I think the cherry on top for me when it comes to Algorand is the aspect of ISO 20022. And this is not something that kind of originally I would really think about when it comes to Algorand because usually an aspect of ISO 20022 is something that I would kind of think about if I'm thinking about, projects that have this emphasis on payments or should I say global trade and finance, like for instance, a Ripple, Stellar, something like an XDC, for instance. That's kind of the vibe I would think about when it comes to ISO 20022. But when it comes to Algorand, having that aspect, I actually find that very impressive because ISO 20022, that is currently being used by many financial institutions from all around the world for something called inter-organizational data exchange. So when it comes to Algorand, I like seeing that. And also on top of that, when I take a look at ALGO again, maybe at the price of $5, around a 23x from here, market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply would be around 44 billion. I mean, even though BNB during this cycle reached a new all-time high, whereas many of its, kind of competitors, right, hasn't done that yet. Or maybe it might hypothetically never, who knows, only time will tell. But even though BNB has done that, BNB back in 2021, years ago, the market cap was over 100 billion at one point. And imagine, right, BNB reached a new all-time high during this cycle, and maybe I don't think we've ever even seen a fully fledged type of hypothetical altcoin season yet. So if BNB was able to reach that back then, like maybe ALGO at the idea of around a $44 billion market cap, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me. But this is again just the way to take a look at it. Algorand, it's pretty popular, right? It's pretty famous. Usually people think about it in comparison to something like Avalanche, which is another very popular layer 1 blockchain, but the way I take a look at it is that when it comes to Algorand, I'm still a fan of the project. I'm still holding, I'm still waiting, and that's pretty much about it. Again, I get it. Personally, for me, I don't like it if my portfolio goes down, right? But then at the same time, it is just part of what I am doing because I am just holding, I am just waiting. And along the journey, there's going to be ups and downs. So I knew that getting into it. I'm not telling you to do anything, by the way. This is just my outlook. But I'm staying patient. I made it for quite a while. I mean, very early on when I was making videos, even back then, I was even talking about Algorand because, I've been holding Algo for quite a while now, right? When it comes to, again, Algorand's native token. So I just don't want to give up like that. Again, this is just my outlook, but I'm still staying patient when it comes to Algorand, and that's pretty much about it. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's Willie the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.